Peter
Hey.
Friesen.
Hey.
I can't believe it. You know, like I just said to you before we went live here, I've been threatening to have you on Jazz Piano Skills for a long time, and I'm finally happy to make do on my threat. And here we are, man. Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills.
Glad to be here.
Wow. Okay, so real quick before we get into your background, before we get into your story, you've been an active participant in Jazz Piano Skills now for over a year, right? I mean, that's how we met, through Jazz Piano Skills.
Almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year now. And it's been a joy to get to know you through Jazz Piano Skills and the master classes, and then our correspondence back and forth through email. Of course, you have an eagle eye because you catch all my mistakes that I have in my materials, and so I appreciate that.
I hope you appreciate it.
I do. Oh man, I do, right? Because I'm churning that out, I'm cranking stuff out, and I get going really quickly, and it's great to have folks like you that find the little typos, the little glitches, the little mistakes, and let me know about it. And I know all the other Jazz Piano Skills members appreciate it as well. So anyway, so you know what's fascinating about you? You are a jazz pianist. You are a jazz educator and have been for many, many years. And of course, like all jazz educators, we consider ourselves jazz students. I mean, we're students of this incredible art form.
This road don't end.
That's exactly right. That's right. So what I want to do is I want to turn the microphone over to you. I want you to go back to the beginning, fill us in on your childhood, how you got into music, your parents, siblings, all that kind of stuff. So, Peter, my friend, the microphone is yours. Tell us your story.
So I grew up in a little village, maybe 1,200 people.
Wow.
It was a Mennonite community.
Uh-huh.
My parents were refugees from they came over. My dad came over late 50s.
Okay.
Because his sister lived here. He was a displaced person in World War II.
Wow. And this is Canada, right?
We're in Canada.
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic.
So, in that little village, I never left home.
Okay.
We didn't have a car. My dad was 70 years old when I was born. We didn't play ball. We didn't have a television until I was 13 years old. So
lucky
we lived
you.
on Dysfunction Avenue.
Right? Well, lucky you, man. I in many ways, that's a blessing.
Well, it's part of the journey, and it's part of the story, and it's really shaped who I am and why I'm here and doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So my dad was a violin maker by trade.
Wow.
So, but it's not like he was in a little village in the middle of no place. It wasn't like there was 5,000 people at the door every day. But there were people coming by to have their instruments repaired or purchase instruments from him. And one day when I was about 6, he traded a violin for a piano. And that's the beginning of my piano journey there.
Wow.
So anyway, I just took lessons. We had teenager neighbor came to buy. We didn't have much money, so I ended up mowing. When I did a couple of teachers later, I ended up mowing the teacher's lawn.
Wow.
And it was never good enough to just go one way. You had to do it the other way too, so that the lines would match. So double duty.
Hey, Rip, that's some good jazz training for you right there, man. Perfection, making sure there's symmetry there. That's awesome.
It's about being meticulous, I guess.
That's right. Well, that's part of it, right?
Sure. So I played away and I did my thing, but it wasn't
so you cut the grass. That's how you paid your teacher. Yeah,
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
Her husband was a violinist that had and that whole family played violin. They were well known outside the community too. So they had all of my dad's violins, and they used to come to our house and play, and it just rattled my bones when you're 6 years old and somebody comes in and rips it on the violin and the piano together. It was like something shocking.
Right.
It really rattles your system, right? And you go like, eyes open.
Wow. Yeah. Right. Did your mom play? Was your mommy?
My mom sang a lot, and
Okay.
She was not well either. When I was 2, she had brain cancer, so she had an operation and lost her short-term memory, and
wow.
it was a little bit
Right.
not a great time for everybody. So,
Right.
but she sang a lot of Mozart, and
Okay.
I went to Germany maybe 5 years ago, and I met up with her extended family, and they're all musicians. They teach music in the public school, which is like very classical
Right.
kind of
Right.
pedagogy is all just classical history, and
Right.
I saw some of the tests for grade 6, and it's like name an oratory, blah blah, and all that kind of questions. It's like heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, I'm
There
glad I
are-
don't have to take that test.
So in Munich, there are 32 people in an orchestra, and they're all related. They're all cousins of my mom,
Oh, that's
and they play
That's a-
Viennese cafe music.
wow. So you come from a long line of musicians. I mean, it's running through your veins, right? I
Yep.
mean, wow. So okay, so wait a minute. So all right, so there you are. You're in this small community. You finally got your hands on a keyboard. You're cutting grass to pay for lessons. I'm assuming these are traditional kind of classical piano lessons at this time,
Yeah.
right? Your traditional
Lila
repertoire.
Fletcher, yeah,
Yeah, right.
that book
Right.
is still around.
Yeah, right. So okay, so somewhere then did the jazz journey begin in your childhood, or did that come much later?
When I was in the 7th grade, so 12 years old, I saw a picture of Rick Wakeman. And I don't know if you recognize that picture where he had a big cape and long flowing hair and
Oh,
he looked
yeah.
just like Jesus, man. And he's going, oh, like this, like bathing in the glory. And I thought, wow, I want some of that.
That's funny, man.
So,
Oh my gosh.
so there's a mentor.
There you go.
The funny thing about that is it came around on YouTube. There's a Rick Wakeman plays a solo and these days, and somebody commented, "Hey, look, it's Dog the Bounty Hunter."
Oh, I can honestly say, Peter, I did not see this coming. This is a shock. So okay, so this is how you got into jazz, right?
Yeah, so I had friends, and one played drums, one played guitar, and we got going, and we'd play A minor for 3 hours and jam, jam, jam. And I thought,
Okay,
this
wait.
is cool.
And so these guys are all part of the same community, your community, right?
Sure.
So within that small community, you were able to hook up with a drummer, another kid playing drums. Wow, that's fantastic.
It was all rock, and well, it's A minor, chunk, chunk, but hey,
Yeah.
we're rocking, and
Of
hey,
course.
I know A
Yeah.
minor now.
Yeah,
So
well, that's
good.
how it starts.
So
Yeah.
then there were some guys that moved to town, and they used to be in a band out of town, and so they just invited me and my pal to come and play. So by 14, I was playing the local pubs. I don't know how I got it. There's a lot of things I don't know what happened.
Right. That's funny, man. So, all right. So, I mean, here you are, 14 years old. You're starting to branch out. You got your classical, traditional piano lessons that you've been taking. Now you're starting to branch out and play some rock, classic rock, maybe some jazz. So, who were the early jazz influence? When was it that you actually said, "Wait a minute, man, I really have to dive into this. This jazz stuff is captivating. I really need to focus on this."
Well, I started playing pubs regular, so
Okay.
till I was like, we had a house gig, so every weekend we'd play this place. And you notice when you come in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, hey, there's a guy staring a hole at the bottom of his beer. At 2 o'clock at night when you went out, he was still there staring a hole in the beer. And when people get drunk and they get rowdy and obnoxious,
Yeah. Yeah.
at 17 it scares the crap out of you.
Right. Right.
I decided there and then, enough. I can't be here. Well, I mean, the dream was I was going to be a musician, but not
Right.
that kind of musician.
Right.
And that's no life, and it's still not. I still, like, I can go to the jam at the local pub. They're still playing those songs. They're
Right.
still, after 50 years of hard living, they don't look
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that dude
I
still
didn't
there
want a part
staring
of
at the bottom? Is that same dude still there staring at the bottom of his beer?
that. His brother's there.
Okay, so all right.
So
So what did you do? How did you make that transition?
Well, when I was in high school, I started like this. I heard Oscar Peterson.
Well, of
This is cool. And I mean, I didn't know what that was. I was a rock star, right?
Yeah, right.
So, but I like, wow, that's pretty fantastic. And by that time, my parents had passed away. So I was on my own, 17 years old, living with my 16-year-old sister. Don't know how that happened. No adult in sight. But
Wow.
I used to hitchhike after high school, and I had a job after school doing some work, so I had some pocket money. So I'd hitchhike to Vancouver. Oscar Peterson, Ella Fitzgerald, Joe Pass, they used to tour together.
Yes, right.
And I saw them on a regular basis. They'd come around once a year or so.
Holy moly.
George Benson on the Friesen tour.
Yep.
And then he had a keyboard player, and I think it's Ronnie Foster. And there's an ARP solo in some of that stuff, and it's just
Right.
like that, just, right there. That's just
Right.
amazing. So
Right.
I want some of that. And so I decided it's time to go to music school. So I got on a bus and I traveled 400 miles into the wilderness, and there was a jazz school there. I got off the bus, I had $20 in my pocket. And no parents, so I quickly signed up for a student loan. Anyway, I was there a couple of years. The problem was
what was the name of the school?
it was called David Thompson University Center.
Wow.
And it was
It was all
there were
jazz.
two programs going. There was a classical program and
Okay.
a 2-year jazz
Okay.
program.
Okay.
So, but the problem was there was not a jazz teacher there for piano. It was all classical. But then, and so I buckled down, and I had very poor technique, so I had to relearn everything. It was like, don't play any of your old songs. We're starting fresh here. We're going to do it right. So,
Right.
a lot of discipline to do that.
So wait a minute. You're at a jazz school, no jazz piano teacher. So you're at a jazz school taking what, classical piano lessons? Yeah, working on the technique side of stuff, right?
Yep. So I had
Yeah.
to fix that situation. So what I ended up doing was I used to get on an all-night bus, 12 hours to Vancouver, take a 1-hour piano lesson with a jazz teacher, get back on the bus, 12 hours back home. So
Wow.
2 days to get back and forth. That was an 800-mile journey. to
Yeah,
and
okay.
from.
I just want, before you go on any further, I just need to stop you. I need to make a couple comments here. First of all, it's really, really apparent how much you love music and how much you love jazz. Because for you to be confronted with the hurdles that you've already been confronted with, and you're only 17 years of age, and you're piecing together this way for you to have a music education and then go even an extra mile with these bus journeys in order to get 12-hour journeys in order to get a jazz piano lesson. My friend, I have to just, I don't even need to hear the rest of your story, to be quite honest with you. It's unbelievable. It's fantastic. Peter, I must commend you, man. Your love for music runs deep and very deep, because I don't know, quite honestly, I'm not sure I don't know a whole lot of folks with that kind of perseverance and that kind of determination to do that. So congratulations, man. I think it's fantastic. It's unbelievable.
So part of it is because I lost my parents early, and nobody
Right.
was there to help.
Right.
And you kind of wonder where. Usually there's a social system in Canada, but it didn't come to my house.
Right.
You learn, like, it's not a sad story. You learn to pick up your boots and let's get going.
Good for you, brother. Yeah, that's awesome.
And
That's tremendous.
if I need to fix the problem, hey, it's about pursuit of beauty.
Yeah.
That's what this whole journey is. If you want to boil it into a pot, this is about pursuit of beauty. And
Yeah.
in hardship, yeah, you learn to appreciate the beautiful part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So make that.
Wow, so this 12-hour bus trip. This is a private jazz pianist that you hooked up with.
Yeah, he was
That
recommended
teaching
by a
private
friend.
lessons. Huh? Okay. Wow.
So his
okay.
whole
So,
si- Go
yeah.
ahead.
Tell us about your experience with him. What was the approach? What did you guys work on?
That guy was stride. So left-hand
piano.
pattern, root 5-10,
Yep.
5 chord, root chord, 5 chord. That was the left-hand pattern. Every
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Right hand, octaves, 2-note fill. Every song. You harmonize every 8th note on the beat.
Yeah.
The offbeat goes
Yeah.
in octaves.
Right.
And so, but that was like 2 years of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That,
then
that's not uncommon, right? I mean, at that time, I had a piano teacher who was very much, solo piano playing equaled stride piano playing. They were
Yep.
like they were synonymous terms, even though we know that not to be the case, right? But that's very common. So okay, so now you've been
But
working on your.
It does learn you your chords
You sure
when
does.
you're doing octave and fill, right? It's like, hey,
Well, hey, and honestly, I'm not sure I know of anything harder than stride piano.
yeah,
It's hard, right?
hard.
So okay, so how long were you with this gentleman?
2 years.
2 years.
They closed, and then they closed the university, just out of the blue. Hey, we're closing you down. It was sort of a political thing because the town had never voted for the ruling government, and they were always very, very. So it was time to get out there and hammer it hard. So
gosh.
I needed 2 more credits to finish my 2-year diploma, and
they closed.
Guess what? They closed it.
Yeah, Peter, man, your story, that's unbelievable. I can't take it, man. You're that
like,
close. You're 2 hours away from a degree, and they closed the university.
Yeah.
So
So I had to go. I ended up staying in town for another 2 years and teaching,
okay.
which was glorious. And I also played in a country and western band with a bunch of young men who drank too much.
Yeah. Okay. So wait a minute. Could you transfer your credit hours someplace else and finish up your degree, or did you just say, the heck with it, I'm going to start my professional journey now?
I was able to transfer my credits to another university in Vancouver. It was also a 2-year program. So for the 2 years minus the 2 credits that I needed, I had to start at year 2. So I got in 1 year I could spend there. And
Yeah. Wow.
cleaned that up.
All right. So that's good, man. So, okay, you started teaching at this time.
Yeah, 19. I think, it was 19.
Wow, 19
I taught
years
in the
old.
basement of a music store.
Wow, fantastic. Well, hey, you know what they say, right? No better way to learn something than start teaching it, right?
Yeah, learning in the trenches.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay, so here you go. Now you're 19 years of age. You've had classical training. You've had now some solid jazz instruction. You're 19 years of age. So what got you? Did you start teaching more from a survival perspective, or a love that you felt you were being drawn to teach? Because a lot of times in our profession, people start teaching because they need some money. So what was your catalyst there? What prompted you to start teaching at 19?
I needed some money. That's one part of it. It's like,
Of course.
I was playing in that cowboy band. We were doing okay. I was 21 at this time. But anyway,
Okay.
So I was in a cowboy band. We played every weekend. And we were situated perfectly. 1 hour away, there was another town with a bunch of bars. And so it was 1 hour and about 5 different towns you could hit in 1 hour. So
Yeah.
we were working steady. And that was cool.
Yeah.
But, more bar music and same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
these guys really drank hard, man. The singer couldn't sing until he had 6 beers. And I was like,
Right.
I would drive home.
I think I played
And
with
he'd
that
take
guy.
it from there, and he wouldn't know. He'd phone me the next day and say, "How'd I get home?" I said, "You drove." And I'm so happy he didn't hurt anybody. But
Right.
honestly,
Exactly. Oh my goodness. So okay, so now you're teaching, you're gigging. This all sounds real familiar, right? Many listeners, many folks in the music profession. This is kind of a normal path here right now, right? We're teaching, we're gigging, we're making ends meet.
Yep.
So
But I love teaching. I found out I love teaching, and I know how to get along with kids. Everybody was like 10.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So okay, so you started teaching at 21 years of age, right in there, and you've been teaching ever since.
35
Wow,
years.
wow. So
Or
let's
so.
talk about your teaching, man. So you got a private studio there in Canada where you're living?
I do.
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
about 35, 40 students. I don't know.
Yeah. Are you teaching traditional classical literature? Are you teaching jazz? Combination of the two?
Combination.
Yeah.
There's a large Asian population where I live, actually.
Okay.
I think they are the majority where I live. And
Okay.
a lot of them would like to do the classical thing. And
Oh,
do the
of
jazz.
course. Right.
That's kind of
right.
easy. I mean, you open the book and you say,
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a Bach 2-part invention. Let's play it. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I got it.
Most of them are little, like between 6 and 12.
Yeah. So okay, so let's talk about your jazz journey. You know, you started with stride piano. Where did it go from there? What kind of things were you searching for? Who were your influences? You mentioned Oscar Peterson. What jazz pianist, what jazz musicians were you listening to that were influencing you? What did you do to try to navigate toward that sound? Your idols, the folks that you were being influenced by. Talk to us about that a little bit.
So Bill Evans was on the list for sure.
Right, sure.
Then there was a whole period of Dave McKenna was the man, and listen to that left hand.
Golly, right? Unbelievable.
Yep. And I like classical was still part of it. I love Bach. He's the pinnacle of everything to me.
Yeah, right. So are you still playing a lot of classical literature? Do you keep up with that, or you just focus? Yeah, jazz. Yeah,
nope.
Okay.
I play the pieces my students are learning, and that's about it.
Yeah. Okay, so you're influenced by Bill Evans. You got Dave McKenna. These are two great. Obviously, Oscar Peterson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after the stride piano, then what did you start diving into educationally in practicing that you were doing to help shape you as a jazz pianist? What types of skills were you working on?
When I went to finish off the last year of my college, it ended up the guy I was studying with was the college teacher.
Okay.
So after a steady diet of 4-note right hand, stride, I'd say, hey, can we learn something like this? And he'd just say, you're not ready. And I'm thinking, maybe I just don't fit your paradigm because you got your method. And honestly, everybody went through the same things and the songs came in the same order. It was like,
oh,
boom.
wow. Oh, wow. Yeah. Right.
So I got a little fed up, and there was another guy in town. There was a big club here called The Cave.
Okay.
And it was Hollywood North in the early 60s. The Rat Pack would come up here.
Wow.
So I studied with a guy named Ted Collins. He was a well-known teacher around town. He was the house piano player for The Cave. So he would tell me stories about, Frank Sinatra and these guys came to town. A rehearsal was buy the guy a turkey sandwich so he can stand up for the show because they were drinking hard. It's like... And then I'd say, I want to learn jazz. And he'd say, what do you want to... You're never going to work. What do you want to play that crap? You're never going to work.
Yeah.
So I learned a whole bunch of stuff, like 2-beat, World War I song, everything. Ballads. Right. And he listened to me play from the stuff I was learning with the other guy, and he goes, what's that crap? So it opened it up a bit. So I got what I needed. Like, it was cool.
Yeah.
And his lessons were, it was 45 minutes. You play for 35 minutes. He'd be in the other room, and you could hear clink, 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 because he was pouring himself a whiskey.
Oh,
but
wow.
he'd come out after 35 minutes and say, you played this song, you didn't do this, you could have done this, you could have done that. And then that's when I slammed my tape recorder on, and I would go home and I just go over that last 10 minutes of getting blasted.
Wow.
I learned.
Wow. So what part of Canada is this? We're
in Vancouver.
Oh, okay, Vancouver. Okay. Wow. Okay, so very interesting, right? So it's one of the things. It's hard to find jazz teachers, right? There's a lot of jazz musicians, but it's hard to find jazz teachers. Somebody who can really accurately assess where you are, what you need, and then how to communicate to you the various skills and approaches that you need to incorporate into your practicing in order to move toward accomplishing your goals. Would you not, in your journey, did you not find that? I always found it difficult. I found great jazz players, but I always had difficulty finding great jazz teachers. Talk to me about that. Would you concur with that?
I think we might have shared the same beginning, like you were on the John Megan book.
Yes,
I got that out of the library, but I ended up with the Berkeley book. That's where I started. And 2-5-1s were like the world's biggest revelation to me. So I 6 days a week, 6 hours a day, 2-5-1s. Gonna learn this.
Yeah.
So I did, and it took a while. And I don't know if I'm a slow learner, but Tell me I can't, and I'll do it.
Yeah, right.
So, anyway, and then as far as jazz teachers, like, honestly, the dudes I have studied with, heavy dudes, like, they've written the Oscar Peter transcription book.
Right.
Studied with, one guy studied with Oscar.
Right.
Another guy, he was very, I studied with a lot of old men, thinking these guys know what they're talking about, and they've been around the block, right?
Right. Right.
That's kind of a two-edged sword, because for a lot of those guys, it seemed like Miles Davis came along and piano players started using chordals, and that's where music got wrecked.
Yeah,
So
right.
it was definitely dated to, we're doing traditional voicings and none of the 5-note stuff.
Right, right.
And the other thing was, like, it wasn't like, here's the pedagogy, we're going to do this, this, and this. It was learning songs,
Yeah.
and whatever happened during the song is what we're going to do. And it's like,
Yeah.
and so, like, that was all cool, but, you know, teaching was never their focus. It was like, I am a gigging musician, but I can't make it meet, so I'm going to teach.
Yeah, you know, I tend to think I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'll make this statement. I think I've made this statement before. I always tend to think for students looking for jazz teachers, if the first thing they do is pull out a song, you should run the other direction and find another teacher, because quite honestly, I know we all want to play songs, which is really, I mean, that's the whole point, right? But a song was never designed to teach you how to play. A song was never written to teach you how to play, right? Yeah. So, you know, George Gershwin never wrote a standard and said, you know what I really love about this standard? It's going to help so many students learn how to play. I mean, that's not the point of the composition. And so oftentimes inexperienced jazz educators will just turn to tunes. Well, let's play this tune. Let's play that tune. Let's work on this tune. And I get that, but at the same time, I'm as a jazz educator, I'm more concerned about teaching you how to play the piano. And if you learn how to play the piano, you're going to learn how to play. You're going to be able to play thousands of tunes, right? Yep. So, just for listeners out there, I would just say to you that, you know, if you're trying to hook up with a teacher and the first thing they do is put a song in front of you, in my book, that's a serious red flag. That's a serious red flag.
There's definitely going to be holes in the pedagogy if that's how you're going to learn.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, because sooner or later you have to confront things. You already mentioned 2-5-1. Sooner or later you got to confront voicings. Sooner or later you got to confront being able to practice scales in the right way, right? Not just straight up and down, but scale patterns, arpeggios, ascending, descending motion. Sooner or later, right, you have to, if you're serious about playing, you have to hit the pause button on tunes. You have to do a big time out and say, man, I got to work on some skill sets here that are going to allow me to play thousands of tunes and not just focus on trying to play one tune, thinking that somehow magically that tune is going to teach me how to play, right?
Sure. So what I would do, like speaking of 2-5-1s, teach the 2-5-1, then drag out Satin Doll. You got 5 keys to work on in that one song.
Exactly right.
So it's like teach the exercise, present something that is using that technique.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, okay, so you know, you've hooked up with a lot of older teachers. How did you start getting acquainted with some more contemporary styles of playing jazz piano and voicings and, you know, contemporary chordal type shapes and moving away from your traditional shell voicings and stride piano? What happened? How did that enter into your jazz education?
It took a long time. So maybe 10 years ago, I hooked up with this teacher, and we started doing melodic minor theory and chording. That was big eye-opener for me.
Right.
And I love the sounds of those.
Right.
That those chords create.
Right. All the altered sounds coming from those the melodic minor, harmonic minor scales. Yeah.
Yeah. But even there, like, never did like 5-note chordal comping.
Yeah.
It was always solo piano based. And they didn't you use chordals now and then, but nothing like comp the whole verse and chorus in 5-note chords. So I had one teacher present the drop 4-2, 2-4. That's in a 1 hour lesson, all keys and every kind of chord, and it's like, yeah, right. See you in 5 years. That was eye-opening. So that's what I was doing in the last 10 years. That approach is different than your primary, secondary. So I'm doing both approaches and see which one is going to work for my head.
Well, you bring up a great point, right? There are different ways, when you start getting into the study of harmony, which, by the way, that's where, personally, I think it begins, right? Melody flows from a harmonic understanding. I used to have old jazzers tell me all the time. They used to ask me, they used to say, Bob, are you serious about really wanting to improvise? Are you serious about wanting to really improve your melodic playing and be able to play great melodic ideas and improvise? Are you serious about doing that? I go, yes, of course I am. And these old guys would say, well, then you need to study harmony. And when I was a young kid, I used to always think like, well, what the heck? Wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense because we were just talking about melody, and now you're telling me to go study harmony. I'm not understanding. Well, now I do, right? Because through a strong understanding of harmonic structures and voicings and left-handed voicings, two-handed voicings, these shapes, these are what the stronger foundation you have harmonically. Melody flows from that understanding of harmony, and that's kind of where I think a lot of jazz students run into a brick wall, because the study of voicings, I think, is one of the most confusing topics that's out there. All kinds of information on voicings, and it can get, like I always say, it can get like fishing line. It can get tangled up real quickly about how to voice and how to practice voicings. And that's the other thing, right? It's one thing to show somebody a voicing type, but it's another thing to show somebody how do you practice that? How do you practice those shapes so that they become an instinctual oral and muscle memory that you develop, that will then be the catalyst that will fuel melodic invention. So it's one thing to show you a voicing. It's another thing to show you how do you practice it to get it under your hands, in your fingers. And so I think it's great that you're studying multiple voicing types, because through that you then start to formulate how you're going to approach the piano harmonically, and then that will govern how your melodic development takes place. Would you agree with that as an educator and as a student yourself?
Well, the way it's like the rules that are being applied here for primary voicings, I mean, you can put that in a shoebox, and it's like this big, and it's like got boundaries, right?
Right.
The other kind, I had a teacher, none of that. He'd say, "Oh, I don't follow patterns," and then his approach was, "Okay, you're on this chord. This scale goes with it. You can play one note, two notes, three, or clunk all 8 notes that are in that scale. Doesn't matter to him." And it was okay, maybe. But then, I mean, he'd be playing, and I'd say, well, I mean, I'd look at it, and I'd be like, hey, those are just stock voicing, man. Yeah. And I mean, he had one, he likes seconds and a fourth. Yeah. So, it was, I only play by shape. Maybe. Yeah, see, and that's the kind of stuff as educators, right, we're trying to avoid with our students. I mean, I get, it's kind of like I heard a teacher one time, a student asked this individual, hey, when you're playing that C dominant 7, what notes are you thinking? Right? Are there particular notes that you're thinking when you play that C7, improvise over that C7? And the teacher said to him, well, there's 12, pick one. Yeah. I heard that in one of your podcasts, and it just went like this. Hey, I was the guy asking that question. Yeah, and when that answer comes to you, it destroys you, man. It does destroy you, because that's just like, as an educator, I went like, okay, I get it, right? I get what you're saying, but dude, that is like really bad instruction. That's just really bad guidance to tell anybody. It's harmful, man. And like, the teaching gig is, you got to get that kid to believe they can do it. Yeah, that's right. You toss one of those comments out, and you just killed it, man. Yeah, and unfortunately, that's very common in our profession. I hate to say it. I mean, I hear stuff like that. I hear stuff like that come out of teachers
mouths all the time, and it's very frustrating. It's very, like you said, it's very deflating. It's very, very deflating to a student, right?
This is about making people believe they can do the undoable.
Right.
A bit.
Right.
I mean, it is doable, but you got to do the right steps. But if you
Right.
want to kill it, tell a kid something negative. Like,
Yeah, right. So with voicings, if you say, hey, you can clump down, I don't play patterns, I play this or play that, I play what comes to my mind, I play what I feel. Okay, that to a student, I mean, come on, really? Whatever. Get in your car, go, leave, and never come back is what I would say to the student.
well, I could go and, hey, that was my $75 you just ate right there, and you know what? It wasn't worth it, not one bit.
Right. So, you've heard me say this before as a jazz educator, as a jazz educator, my job, really my first and primary job is to make jazz, because we're talking about, to make jazz easy, to make jazz simple here, conceptually. Because if you start to think about it correctly here and understand it in an easy format here, then you have a shot here in the hands. You have a shot. You really have a shot to develop. But if I, as an educator, make it complicated here, confusing here, abstract here, conceptually, then I hate to break the news to you, you have no shot here in the hands. You have zero. Because all you're doing is grasping at straws. You're throwing darts at a board, hoping to hit something once in a while. And so, unfortunately, that happens far too often in our profession. So, again, your journey, right? Here you are in your journey. You're trying to find answers. You're out there like all of us as students. You're out there searching and taking 12-hour bus trips and trying to get your hands on something to allow you to kind of start to formulate an approach, to formulate a way of thinking about jazz, making jazz simple and easy here, so that you can really start to flourish and take off here in your hands. So, I commend you. I think it's fantastic. So
to aid that, maybe 10 years ago, I started writing some books. So I self-published a couple of books, and in the process, like what I noticed, if you're trying to teach a kid lead sheet, and I do lots of like simple patterning in the left hand,
right.
Before you do jazz, let's just do triads. So even talking the lingo, root 5, 10, 9, all those numbers, and getting them thinking like that. So it took a long time. It took me about 2 years to finally figure out how to write that and fit it. Because the other thing is, I just superimpose a rhythmic pattern, so root 5, 10, even just quarter notes. And you tell the kid, you show them the pattern. They could never line it up with the melody.
Right.
So I invented a little thing where you take a single line drum staff, and I put all the timing underneath it, but it wouldn't name the note. It would be root 5, 10. So you're forced to think function.
Yeah.
And that works like a hot dog. I mean, I got a 10-year-old thing, root 5, 10. It's like, wow.
Well, hey, man, lucky 10-year-olds. Lucky 10-year-olds, man, because the sooner that you can begin, a student can begin thinking in terms of, function, what's the third, what's the seventh, what's the ninth, what's the 13th. The sooner that a student can think of the architectural structure of harmony and how it's put together, the better. The absolute better. Sure. Right.
And it flows. It's not like you have to wait 10 years to start that language. You can start
Correct.
it right off the top.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
the simplest thing you could do is play the root of the chord for a whole beat and single note melody on top. But if I write it out, they're going to read it. And I don't know, like the reading thing, that's a different thing.
You're right.
And some kids are really good at reading, and the other thing they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So
you bring up an interesting point there, right? Reading, I have a love-hate relationship with reading. I'm a functional reader. I'm not a great reader, but I will say this, in a way, I'm thankful because especially in jazz, right? In fact, I mentioned this last evening in our master class, right? That we tend to want to process music way too much through our eyes, way too much through our eyes. And there has to be an oral I mean, the ears have to be put. The ears have to be put to work, right? I mean, they just can't. If everything's coming, if all our musical stimuli is being processed through our eyes, our ears go on vacation. Our ears go like, well, whatever, okay. And so, this being able to think 2-5-1 and not read it and play it around the circle in different keys. Be able to play in your scales, not read them. Patterns, not read them. Voicings, not read them. Right, you're processing everything. Like I like to say, music is the study of shapes and sounds. So the more that you can process shapes intellectually and sounds orally, as a jazzer, I think that's the way to go, right? Way too much emphasis is placed on, if everything's being processed through the eyes, you're kind of missing the boat, in my opinion.
I'm really fortunate because back when I was 12 in a rock band, it wasn't like you could go buy the sheet music, you could go download the tab, blah, blah. Guess what? Here's the cassette, see you Thursday, and you want to be in the band, you better buckle down and figure it out.
Listen to
you're forced in it's in the ear.
Yeah.
So I learned to hear harmonic progressions. And maybe there were 3 chords, but I could also discern what's the piano player doing in that big blob of sound.
Man, I got to tell you, Peter, I'm so happy that you used the word cassette. Because now I feel like we're really connected, right? I mean, we come from the same age group. Cassette, man. Now you're talking my language. That's how we learned everything. You're right. The guy would hand you a cassette, and you'd go learn those tunes, and you'd go home and you put it in your little cassette player, and you play. For those of you jazz listeners that are listening right now, and you have no idea what a cassette is,
means we're old.
Yeah, we're old, but you can Google it and check it out. It was pretty cool at the time,
It was cool, but I do have permanent hearing damage from the rewind button.
Zing! Right, man. Oh, those were the days, man. Those were the days. So,
it goes to something I wanted to mention. Yeah. After 35 years of teaching, what I understand is the human brain is the laziest muscle, and it's going to take the easiest route from A to B. So if you are going to learn a song by ear, but you go to YouTube and watch some guy here, put your finger here, that ain't hearing it. And if you force yourself into a corner where you got no choice, your brain will come up and do what it needs to do. But given it has an alternative, it's going that way.
That's exactly right. Great point. Really, really great point. That's awesome. Well, that's why one of the things I do, like when I send out my Saturday standards, to everybody at JazzPianoSkills, and I'm always just saying, learn melody by ear, please. Just learn the melody by ear. Don't be use your brain, use your ears, figure it out. Don't be going to a fake book or a real book and trying to figure out the melody, right? Do it by ear, and guess what? You're going to be really surprised, because guess what's going to happen? You're actually going to learn it by ear. It will happen.
I listened to Marion McPartland's show back in the day. She was talking about everything she did. I don't know if she could read because it sure don't stick in my head.
Right.
If you read it, and
that's right.
Guilty.
It doesn't stick. There's not a stickiness there. Right.
Not at all. Because hey, I have these gigs, and it's like a wedding, and the bride says 14 of these lovely new songs for you. Well, I don't have time to memorize that, so I'll learn it as best I can. Yeah. It's on a sheet, but it's on the sheet and it's gone. And you know what's really funny, Peter, too? The more you use your ears, right? At first, if you're wanting to read everything, it's because you're scared of letting your ears go to work. And then once you let your ears go to work, and you start realizing that your ears are good and that you can actually play stuff by ear, then you no longer want to read. Then it goes the other direction, right? So there's a cool tool online. What's it called? Melodia.
Okay.
And it's an ear training website. It's a subscription.
Okay.
And they have for one thing, it starts low sounds, high sounds. They do density stuff where how many notes are we playing, and it's really well stepped. The other thing that really helped me was the Dick Grove School they have an ear training book. Their teacher, Mark Harrison, he writes a lot of stuff for Hal Leonard, but the course from the Dick Grove School is there. And it's about hearing resolution. So re, do, fa, mi, la, sol, ti, do. And once you start hearing those, man, your intervals don't really matter. It's not about intervals. It's about the melody, right?
Right. So, okay, so here you are, a young man that happens to know about cassettes, what are you practicing now? What are the things that you're studying now at this stage of your journey?
I listened to one of your podcasts. I bumped into it just putzing around on the internet. And I mean, it all went click.
Wow.
So I'm working on your stuff. And I'm gone. There's 4 years of weekly podcasts, Bob. That's a lot of stuff. And it's not like, hey, week 1, it'll take you 2 hours to get through it. I'm sorry. You got 6 months and a couple hours a day. So it's not like there's a shortage here.
Right.
And it's back to basics.
Yeah.
So, hey, now the more you know, you can never know enough about any major scale on the list. Because the more you learn about it, the cleaner you get.
Right. Right.
And the more everything starts to make sense. Because this is, like, that's what, one of the reasons I'm here. This is a cool little, it's like a formula going on. Mm-hmm. It's a logic system, that's for sure. Yeah. Wow. And that intrigues me greatly. Like,
yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. It's interesting that when I started doing JazzPianoSkills, the very first thing that criteria that I had was it's not. I never ever want to present anything as being like learn how to play in 30 days, because it's not. Learn how and and each podcast is, you're right, it's packed full of information. But Peter, that's how we learn, right? We want to be like, we want information coming at us. The most important thing, is it organized? Is it structured? Does it connect? Is there a nexus, a link between all the episodes? Is there a message that's being communicated and conveyed, a teaching approach, a learning approach that is reinforced on a week-to-week basis? And at least that's what I try to do. So there's a educational consistency there, and I hope that comes through.
I'm learning as a teacher. I'm looking at what you're doing. I'm looking at the package, how big it is, what you're asking people to do in one lesson. Because I used to be on a different I used to be a member of a different site, a very popular jazz site. Well, the guy can play like a hot diggity dog, like it's godly. Right. And he goes through a tune, hey, learn this song with me. And he goes like, brrr, and he does that, and he's like, whoa, what the hell was that? And he's like, well, or you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this. And I was like, okay, there's 15 years in that 1 minute. You're not teaching me nothing except I feel like crap. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even know where to begin. I mean, all this comes at me so fast, like, I don't even know where to begin. How do I practice?
Same with your voicing. You keep saying, like, hey, there's books on voicings. Yeah, great. What am I going to do with that?
Right.
Too much information. That's why I'm on your website and why I'm a member here, because, like, hey, at least it's manageable.
Right. Well, that's fantastic, man.
You were talking about being stuck in the headlights like a deer in the headlights because it's too much information. You don't know where to go. That's me. Right.
Well, jazz is, like I said earlier, jazz can be very quickly become like fishing line, right? Tangled up very, very quickly, and we start running. We start running as students, as a jazz student. It's easy for us to start running in all kinds of directions, all different directions, all over the place.
Like me, and you get nothing done.
Correct. That's right. We're very, very busy, and we go nowhere, right? We're very busy and go nowhere. So, that's what I keep trying to, with JazzPianoSkills, is keep kind of a pathway that keep us, kind of like the, in the bowling alleys where they put the guardrails up so the ball doesn't go in the gutter. I think that's what good teaching does, right? It puts those guardrails up and prevents students from getting off into the gutters and keep them on a path moving down the lane, right? Yeah. So good.
It's got to be in a box.
Right.
Parameters.
Correct. That's right.
And manageable. Like, don't ask somebody to do 14 years of work in 15 minutes. Because, sorry, I've been there so many times, and it's just like, well, I feel like crap, and right now I feel like I'm a turtle, and I'm just banging away. Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you structure your practicing? Do you have a routine that you go through on a daily basis? Is there how do you approach your practicing that you have found to become a very efficient and effective way for you?
I've been listening to your podcast, and I play right along with the podcast,
Wow.
right along with you. Then I go to the exercises, and I go, okay, let's go.
Wow.
Run through that, see if I
Fantastic.
can handle them. Then some of the new ones that we've been doing this year with the C sounds, and some of the tempos are a little rapid. That
Right.
fingering thing, thank the Lord. But
Yeah.
but it's now, I told you when I went to college I had to relearn, do everything
Yeah.
classical style. Well,
Yeah.
now guess what? I get to do it again. And I'm not sorry.
Right. But it's
I
different,
will use
right?
it. It's different.
Yeah.
And I got to get used to my thumb wants to go under all the time.
All the
I didn't,
time.
and I really went ham on on your arpeggio one because I thought, oh, cool, all new fingerings, and I kind of overdid it. So I got to relax a little because my arms, I have serious tendonitis going on.
Oh,
right
that's
now.
funny. Yeah, that's funny.
But
yeah.
hey, give me something like that, and it's like, hey, you want to know why I'm such a keener? You want to take a bus ride? Come on, let's go. There's no bus ride here.
Right. Oh my gosh. So, all right. So man, it's so awesome because here you are. You're just an inspiration, man, to everybody because here you are, lifelong musician, literally. I mean, from childhood to current day, lifelong musician, lifelong student of music. So you're continuing to study, you're continuing to practice, you're continuing to learn, and you're a jazz educator, a piano educator, music educator, and doing that every day as well. I mean, holy cow! I mean, congratulations, Peter, because to me, that's a life well lived, my friend. That's awesome.
Thank you. And because it wasn't easy.
Right.
I was told at the beginning, you can't make a living making music. They're like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
well, you're
Yeah.
you're not thinking hard enough. That's what your problem is. It
Yeah.
might be harder now.
Yeah.
I mean, the gigs. Listen, man, I played in bands. The last 2 gigs, I worked 3 months. I got paid $35, and then the singer decided to quit and join her friends at work in a bit different band. Like $35. I'm hauling. Like it takes me 2 hours just to set up the gear.
See,
And
that's
the other
what-
band, the guitar player played loud. The manager came out and yelled at us. I got $25 at the end of the night, and I go like,
Yeah. What's going on here, man?
"What's
Right?
going on?"
Yeah. Oh my God.
So it's harder now than it used to be.
Yeah. Hey, Peter, you know how you're getting old, man, as a musician? I get called for gigs, and I have 2 questions I always ask when I get called for a gig. First question I ask is there a piano there? Because I'm not carrying any gear. So that's how I know I'm getting old, because I don't want to carry any more. I don't want to set up. I don't want to tear down. I don't want to carry gear. And then the next question I ask is it over by 10 o'clock? You know, because I'm not staying out to play till 2 o'clock in the morning anymore, 3 o'clock. So I guess I've realized now. My wife says, "Well, man, you're old because you don't want to carry gear and you want to be home by 10 o'clock." I said, "Yeah, I guess I'm getting old, man." But
Hey, I did a gig. Well, I did weddings for 20 years.
Yeah, right.
And it's usually cocktail hour after the ceremony, before the
Right.
dinner. And the thing, you go in a big fancy hotel, you wear a nice tuxedo, nobody's listening.
yeah, right.
And you play a song, pins
right.
could drop, and it's just like, why am I doing this?
Yeah,
like I'm
right.
finally getting a little bit smart here.
Yeah, right.
I'd rather
Oh, my-
just stay home and eat popcorn.
Yeah, yeah. So, very cool. So, do you have like a website or anything like that folks can visit, or no? Okay.
No, I used to be on pianoworld.com. Somebody read my book and got excited, and we had a column, but that got really difficult.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm on somebody else's website, so I got to be careful. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that I was given the space there.
Yeah,
then
that's
other
neat.
people come in, and I started getting these emails, and it wasn't about my book. It was like, hey, can you figure this stuff out for me? And it's like, well, read my darn book, and you might be able to do it yourself. So, but it can't say that either.
No,
And
right.
it's like, hey, it got a little tight. And anyway, the end result was I was doing lots of teacher workshops and stuff, and that was enjoyable. But you know what? I never heard one teacher play me anything back. So I didn't.
Wow.
So you
So-
never know what's really going on.
Yeah. So, okay. So, if any of the Jazz Piano Skills listeners want to get in touch with you or send you a message, what best way to do that is through email?
Yep.
Yeah. So, what's your email address that they can reach you?
Friesen at telus, TELUS.net. N-E-T.
All right. Fantastic. Peter, listen, man, I got to just tell you that it has been a thrill to get to know you over this last year. And I'm so grateful that you're part of JazzPianoSkills. I constantly look forward to our interaction. I love your emails and helping me out, and your input and insight at the master classes every week is fantastic as well. It's just been really a joy. You know, you've heard me say this before. I had a teacher, Al Friesen, who always used to say to me, "Don't at the end of every lesson." He used to say to me at the end of every lesson, "Bob, don't ever forget the greatest thing about music is the people that you meet through it." And, you know, every time I meet folks like you and spend time with folks like you, I can't help but to think of my dear friend and teacher and mentor, Al Franzen, who used to tell me that after every lesson, and how true it is. It's just been a joy, and it's been a blessing to meet you and to get to know you. And I look forward to our continued friendship for many, many years.
Maybe it explains why I'm such a keener at those lessons online. It's like, there's no bus ride.
There's no bus ride. No more buses.
Do you know how lucky you are? Because hey, that's sort of the thing. Like, I don't want to cry about things were hard. Good.
Yeah.
You know what? The flip side of that is you learn to appreciate what's good, right?
Well, you've done fantastic, man. My hat off to you. Now that I know your story, I was impressed with you before, but now that I know your story, it's off the charts, man. I cannot say enough good things, man. Congratulations to you, Peter. You're an inspiration to everybody, man.
You are an inspiration to me. I'm so glad I found your website. And listen, I'm like the little puppy dog. Let's go.
Good deal, man.
Thursday night, man. 6 o'clock. You talk to me. Don't talk to me. It ain't going to happen.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Peter, listen, man, on behalf of everybody at JazzPianoSkills, man, thank you for taking time out of your day to share your story with us. And folks, all you listeners out there, feel free to reach out to Peter. He's got a heart of gold and will help and assist in any way that he can and answer any questions that you may have as well. So, Peter, thank you again, my friend, and I'll see you next Thursday on at our master class.
Yeah. It's in my dinner hour. I'm always eating.
It's all right,
my
man.
camera's off. I got something in my teeth.
I love that, man. Make yourself at home. So, all right, Peter, thank you so much, man. Many blessings, my friend.
So, bless you for all that you have out there and you're presenting and your wisdom, because it's really, listen, I appreciate it.
Oh, man.
Really, I do.
Means
Deep
the
down.
world.
I've never been so happy in my life, to be quite honest.
Well, Peter, thank you, man. That means the world to me. It really does. Thank you, my friend.
Yep, you too.
Bye-bye.